I will ask you how old you are, okay? Because you're young enough that it's probably not insulting to ask you. So.
I'm 22, so I'm probably young and naive, right?
No, why aren't you 60? Well, I mean, you can based on primary characteristics if you can see their genitals. Doctors do this literally at birth all the time.
You cut that out now, or you'll go home in an ambulance.
Ben Shapiro just took on woke culture in a way that's totally wild. This American lawyer went head-to-head with a woke student, and you won't believe how it turned out. In a recent showdown, Ben Shapiro breaks down the basics of biology to a college student, clearing up issues around transgenderism and misgendering.
How does your view of transgender issues work when scientific anti-realism as a concept exists?
You're gonna have to explain that one.
Okay, so if you don't get this man's woke gibberish, then don't worry. So the super woke student is asking Ben Shapiro how his views on transgender issues fit with the idea of scientific anti-realism. This concept suggests that we can only see the surface of things, like someone's skin or hands, but not the deeper details, like their cells or atoms. They want to know if this idea means we shouldn't be assigning genders to people just based on how they look. Essentially, if we can't fully see or understand someone's biological details, does it mean it's not fair to label their gender based on appearances or observable traits? To this, Shapiro gives a jaw-breaking reply with simple common sense.
Okay, so here's my problem with that particular argument. The answer is that in 99.8%, 99.9% of cases, you absolutely can gender somebody based on looking at them. Like really, if you're going to use sex people as an example of not being able to do that, this does not obviate the biological duality of sex upon which all progeneration is based for all of human history and for all mammalian species. So people do not invalidate the concept of sex as a generality. Sex people are people who have a biological anomaly. And by the way, in most cases of those people still manifest as either a male or a female. So the idea that exists does not invalidate the idea that there is a male and that there is a female, or that in nearly all cases, I can tell the difference between a male and a female. Again, I'm not saying, by the way, that if you can show me your chromosomal charts that you are actually not a male, when I say that you're a male, that I should stick with that biological objective standard. Like my perception of you, in other words, is subject to my correct enunciation of an objective standard. So the objective standard, here's the deal. For all of human history, there was an objective standard between male and female. It was, for nearly all of human history, out of partial ignorance and partially because this is usually true, it was out of simply looking at people's genitals and assessing them based on their outward appearance, right? Which is still true for nearly all human beings on planet Earth at all times, okay?
Shapiro responds with a straightforward answer. He argues that in almost all cases, 99.9%, you can easily determine someone's gender just by looking at them. He points out that using intersex individuals as an argument against this doesn't change the fact that sex is generally binary, male and female. He explains that intersex people have a biological anomaly, but they still usually appear as either male or female. So, the existence of intersex individuals doesn't disprove the basic concept of male and female. Shapiro adds that while our perception of gender might not always match up with someone's chromosomal makeup, the historical standard of recognizing gender based on appearance has been widely accepted for most of human history. Now you think this will be enough to explain the simple concept, but not for this guy.
You can't really describe someone without secondary sex characteristics and gender them into something.
Well, I mean, you can based on primary sex characteristics if you can see their genitals. Doctors do this literally at birth all the time.
Yup, that's how it is done. Doctor, see your no-no area, and Viola, give parents good news.
But your point is correct. If somebody was male dressed as a female and I misgendered them and then they said, oh, look, I'm male, zip, right, then I would say correct. And then correct, I would say, for all of human history, you were male. Now the standard is chromosomal, right? It's the SRNY gene and all of this. There is some objective standard, in other words, by which we can determine. The problem I have with the transgender argument is that people are arguing that there is no objective standard, that no objective standard exists by which I can determine. And in fact, it's completely subjective. I can determine my own gender based on no biology, and in fact, in abeyance of biology. I can have every single biological characteristic of a male, and if I say I am female, then I am female. This is anti-scientific nonsense.
Shapiro argues that gender can be identified from secondary characteristics like appearance and primary characteristics like genitals, especially in medical settings. He criticizes the idea that sex is purely subjective, using Caitlyn Jenner as an example to show that sex is an objective biological fact. Shapiro rejects scientific anti-realism, asserting that sex has clear, objective characteristics. Now the woke student, realizing he's losing the argument, starts playing word games with Ben. But Ben isn't having any of it, and stays focused on the core issue.
I'm not saying that sex is malleable. I'm saying there is male and female biologically. That is true, yes.
Right.
But I'm saying that gender is a spectrum. I'm saying that there is at least male, female, and non-binary because of this strange.
And what I'm saying is that there's a word game that goes on when people discuss gender. Because if we are talking about certain characteristics to which we attribute to masculine or feminine, if you want to say that there's a genetic male with feminine characteristics, we're fine. That's a male with feminine characteristics. Fine, that's fine. I mean, okay. So you're a man with feminine characteristics. That's cool. Who cares? Okay, but that doesn't make you a woman. In other words, if you are going, what we are now doing is we're playing a semantic game where we say a male with feminine characteristics is a woman. That's nonsense. Or a woman with male characteristics, masculine characteristics, is a man. That's nonsense too. And by the way, it actually ends up misgendering a lot of people who are just butch women or effeminate men. Right? So all of this. So in other words, by trying to separate out gender and completely, and then by using terms like male and female or woman and man that are innately connected to sex, what you are doing is deliberately, not you, what people are doing is deliberately confusing the issue such that you get idiocies like Ilhan Omar writing to the Powerlifting Association of the USA saying that a transgender woman who is a biological male should be able to compete against biological women because it is a myth that men can pick up heavier objects than women. That is not a myth, that's called science. Thank you.
Yup, that is absurd. Men playing women's sports. On another interaction, a UNCG student claims that the gender binary is a Western colonialist framework. Ben Shapiro fires back with a response that leaves the student visibly frustrated.
Hello, my name is Quentin Merritt. I'm a mathematician and a physicist here, a double major, and I also just won the most prestigious award in the country to pursue research at any institution I want, the National Science Foundation Graduate Research Fellowship. So I think I'm pretty, qualified to say that most of what you're saying is based on old data. But my question to you, and so I want you all to realize that.
Last month, but sure.
For example, gender identity disorder, that's the DSM-4, bro. We use the DSM-5 now for psychologists to be able to talk about...
I literally cited the DSM-5 in the speech, and it's called gender dysphoria, which is a term that I use throughout the speech, not gender identity disorder.
You sound like a bozo, bro. And you get no
and
you can't even make your wife wet, bro, so what's good?
You can't even get your wife, bro. That's quite a way your point. It feels more like a prank than a serious point. If not, someone needs to let this kid know that just because he majors in math and physics doesn't make him an expert in those fields.
So, let me just say, the nice thing about having several small children is I don't feel the necessity to have my masculinity
challenged. If we're using a
Western
colonial idea of gender, then why should it apply? If we're using, because the gender binary is a Western colonialist framework of gender.
You're right. Men and women don't exist in any other culture.
No. Think about Native American.
Nailed it.
Third gender people. I'm not saying that. Third gender people exist in Native American societies, Western African societies, like Southern Native American societies, like Mexico. So in other places that are not white dominated,
and they
like
are
the United States or
incorrect.
Europe. And so you're saying white, so non-white
incorrect.
people. I'm a mathematician and a physicist. You cannot tell me.
So I have a question.
At this point, I think he must identify as a mathematician and physicist. This kid seems to embody everything that's wrong with this generation. Ben Shapiro is handling this very well, to be honest.
So I have a question.
And also, you're not a biologist.
So I have a question.
I'm 20.
As a mathematician and a physicist, what in the hell do you know about human biology?
And you got your law degree from Harvard. What do you know about biology? You got your law degree from Harvard.
And frankly, I would ask another question. If your logic is so flawed as a mathematician and a physicist, I would suggest that whichever institution gave you an award, revoke it immediately.
I seriously doubt he's won any awards. He must have a participation certificate or something. They hand out those like candy. In another argument, we see the rise and fall of the transgender defender at the hands of Ben Shapiro.
How do you say that some people don't have privilege when you basically just said that trans people aren't valid? They're not a thing. They're just girls pretending to be boys or boys pretending to be girls.
Okay.
Like, okay.
Oh, someone's excited. Okay.
Sex is biological, but gender is a completely different thing.
No, gender is not disconnected from sex. So.
It's not completely disconnected, but it's still a cultural thing. It's still from society.
Okay. No, it is not in the mind. Okay. You're not a man if you think you're a man. And I didn't say pretending, or if I did, I shouldn't have said pretending. Let me amend.
Playing.
Okay, I said a boy who thinks he's a girl. That's the usual phraseology I use. Not playing. I usually say a boy who thinks he's a girl or a girl who thinks he's a boy, which is technically what we're talking about here. As far as the actual psychological issues at play, it used to be called gender dysphoria or gender identity disorder. Now they call it gender dysphoria. The idea that sex or gender are malleable is not true. Okay, and I'm not denying your humanity if you're a transgender person. I am saying that you are not the sex to which you claim to be. You're still a human being, and you're a human being with an issue that I wish you Godspeed in dealing with in whatever way you see fit. But if you are going to dictate to me that I'm supposed to pretend that men are women and women are men, no. My answer is no. I'm not going to modify basic biology because it threatens your subjective sense of what you are.
So here, Shapiro says that gender isn't separate from sex and rejects the idea that it's just a cultural thing. He makes it clear that while he respects transgender people and their struggles, he doesn't think sex can be changed. He stands firm on not altering basic biological facts to match personal feelings about gender. I don't get why people can't understand that you can't magically change your gender. You can't magically change your sex. And you can't magically change your age. Well, Shapiro gets very well. He explains that to this woman in her own language.
Let me ask you this. Okay, I won't ask you how old. I will ask you how old you are, okay? Because you're young enough that it's probably not insulting to ask you. So.
I'm 22, so I'm probably gonna be naive, right?
No. Why aren't you 60? Why aren't you 60? And why can't you identify as 60? What is the problem with you identifying as 60?
It's not the same as gender. You can't just.
You're right. Age is significantly less important than gender.
So legally change it. People recognize.
You can't legally change your age, by the way.
Obviously, you can change your name, you can change your sex, you can change your identity.
Just because you can do things legally doesn't mean that they are correct biologically. You could do lots of things in the past that were incorrect biologically and correct legally. For a long period of time in the United States, sterilization of the mentally ill took place. That didn't make it okay. Skinner versus Oklahoma. Justice Oliver Wendell Holmes wrote the decision.
Right. I still don't understand how these children that are.
It's not a matter of open-minded and accepting. I want them to get treatment that they see fit, but that's not involving me. The idea behind the transgender movement as a civil rights movement is the idea that all of their problems would just go away if I would pretend that they were the sex to which they claim membership. That's nonsense.
Shapiro argues that just because something can be done legally doesn't mean it's biologically right. He uses past practices, like sterilizing the mentally ill, to show that legality doesn't equal biological accuracy. When the student asks why we can't be more accepting, Shapiro says it's not just about being open-minded. He thinks transgender people should get the treatment they need, but he won't change his views to match their gender claims. He believes pretending someone is the gender they say won't fix their issues, and that it's not a meaningful solution. Now, speaking of solution, the solution for every problem for this next wokeist is physical altercation.
All those years invested as this sports legend, to come out transgender is horribly difficult. It is the most difficult thing you can do. I've been overseas, I've flown helicopter missions, surveillance missions, I've been shot, stabbed. Being brave is being yourself, and being transgender is about the bravest thing you can do. Did she deserve the award? Yes.
Why are we mainstreaming delusion?
It's not delusion.
Why would you call it delusion?
Because Caitlyn Jenner, I'll call him Caitlyn Jenner.
No,
because
it's
that's
her. You're not being polite to the pronouns.
Because
disrespectful.
Okay, forget about the disrespect. Facts don't care about your feelings. It turns out that every chromosome every cell in Caitlyn Jenner's body is male with the exception of some of his sperm cells. It turns out that
have a
his
doctor
structure
here,
is
though.
male.
Wait, I need
it
to-
turns out that he still has all of his male appendages. How he feels on the inside is irrelevant to the question of his biological.
So they argue that calling Caitlyn Jenner's identity a delusion is disrespectful. But Shapiro counters that facts matter more than feelings. He points out that every chromosome and cell in Jenner's body is male, except for some sperm cells. Despite Jenner's personal feelings, Shapiro insists that biological reality, including physical attributes, doesn't change based on identity or feelings. For now, Caitlyn is silent, but Caitlyn is about to burst out very soon.
Yeah, go ahead.
Chromosomes don't necessarily mean you're male or female.
Gender.
With gender,
Gender
of course.
identity. Go ahead. Now, so
Especially, but even so, you have a thing like Klinefelter's syndrome. So you don't know what you're talking about. You're not educated on
Would you guys like
genetics.
to discuss the genetics or no?
well, no,
What
no.
are your genetics, sir?
So I'd stay away from the genetics and back to the brain scans.
You cut that out now, or you'll go home in an ambulance.
Yeah, that seems mildly inappropriate for a political discussion.
No, I know. Well,
Yeah.
but wait. To be fair, but to be fair, you're actually being
Hey,
kind
guys.
of rude.
You're
and
horrible.
and that's not fair.
I'm sorry, it's not rude to say that someone who's biologically
called
a
me a
male
sir.
is a male.
You just
Someone
called
who
me
is
a sir.
biologically male is a male.
But Mr. Shapiro, you knew very well that saying that to Zoe would be egregiously insulting.
Well, that wasn't very ladylike of Caitlyn Jen. Cut it out or you're going home in an ambulance. It takes some balls to say that. Anyway, jokes aside, that was not cool of Caitlyn, but Ben handled it like a pro. Even after Caitlyn becomes aggressive, Shapiro remained firm, insisting it's not rude to state that someone biologically male is male. And he is right. Let me know what you think in the comment section. Is Ben Shapiro right, or was he out of line? If you enjoyed this video, make sure to hit that like button and subscribe for more updates. Don't forget to click the bell icon so you never miss an update from us. Thanks for watching, and we'll catch you in the next one.